Then we
I
got
guess
ADP Zacian.
we
Yeah,
have our first S tier
yeah.
deck.
Yeah, S. I think I'll put it in there as well. To be fair, I've done a lot of playtests, and don't get me wrong, but this just seems nutty on paper, right? Like the ability as well is so good on Zacian. Like
Oh yeah.
the first time I saw it, I was like, I wonder if this be good in store. That's how you know. What I mean? Just but I know you've been doing a lot of playtests, so I'll let you take again. Talk to me about ADP Zacian.
Well, I just mean like I just love that ADP just beats loads of random decks because the GX attack, like if your opponent's trying to play fun, creative stuff, the GX attack just says like,
Yeah,
"Oops,
stop
you're in trouble now, boy."
that.
And again, just when you're up against tag team decks, because the Dene gets so much better in this format because you need to have something to do on turn one going first. Just doing the ADP GX attack to get through one tag team and then one Dene as your game plan is pretty good. And previous ADP decks sometimes just flopped if the ADP died
Yeah.
after you use its GX attack and you couldn't Ultimate Ray. This deck doesn't suffer from that because you have Intrepid Sword and Metal Saucer. So even before you've used Ultimate Ray, you probably have a 3 energization in the back, or at least a 2 energization like most of the time. So you're basically just a more consistent ADP compared to like ADP Keldeo. And you have such great push potential. Zacian does 260 after the GX attack, so you can just use anything really. You can use like the new band, you can use Shrine, you can use Galarian Zigzagoon, you can do so many things to just push that. You can play Roxy even. Like you can play Mimi garbage and it's still like good enough because Zacian's pressure is just really insane. So basically we know how good the regular ADP package is. Keldeo gets rubbish now, so you just put a better attacker in instead, and then you have like a way better fallback. So yeah, it just seems really insane to me.
Yeah, I like he hit the nail on the head there because at this current format, I've only been playing Malamar, right? But I know if they flip over an ADP, I think right. Two things. Number one, I've got time because they have to attach one at a time. I'm not on
Yeah,
a super fast clock. Number two, if I can take those energies off, I'm laughing. Like obviously, with
yeah,
Malamar, you go for the pale moon. Like see you later, scoop them up. But yeah,
mhm.
you're right. Against this though, they lead ADP, they attach energy. Oh, but there's a Zacian that just uses its ability, and oh, that's got one, and then it goes source to slap. It's like, oh, right, hold on, like I can't just deal with this one and then just
Yeah.
just relax and just go, like, oh yeah, 150, 150, 150.
Yeah, there can even be
Yeah,
builds that play like E-Switch to be super like
great,
you
yeah,
can get funky with tempo and like your opponent doesn't really know what you're gonna try and do on the future turns and stuff.
mm,
So rather than being like, okay, attach pass, attach GX, play
yeah,
the rest of the game, you can do all sorts of plays and pressure. Like you can actually pressurize the board, which was something that ADP basically never did.
yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, I think and ADP was good enough before it had that option. You know, like,
Yep.
it was already still good. So yeah, I
Like
think
its GX attack was so good that all the downsides that we previously knew were like you just accepted those were downsides of
yeah.
ADP, and now like all of those downsides are covered. So that's pretty insane.
So yeah, ADP Zacian. Nah, I stay firmly in the S tier. But interestingly enough, though, what I want to talk about another one because I was having this debate with someone at a League Cup. They were trying their hardest to convince me that defensive tankization is better than ADP. Now I imagine it's probably a good deck. Don't get me wrong, but better, I'm not sure. So I think I'm gonna put it. Leave it in one for now. Just because, like we said about the ADP event, you can just go bish bash bosh. Here's crazy stuff going on. I feel as if this version is going to be a bit more methodical. Like, oh, here we go doing this. And I guess you can play E switches as well. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm just not convinced. I mean, I granted a Zacian with a pan and the -30 is a bit annoying to deal with. Don't get me wrong, but I just like the idea of just going whack three prizes. So Joe, give me the defend the tanky builder because I just don't see why you'd ever play that over the big bang bang version.
I mean, I even built the tanky list and then I still snuck in one ADP, one Aurora Energy, just because I was like, ADP GX attack just wins so many matchups. So it feels like the tanky build is more of a meta decision rather than
Okay.
like if you look at the rest of this in all of the other decks on the screen, the Zacian ADP list is allowed to face all of them and will still have a matchup against them basically.
Yep.
The Zacian Luke Metal will have like stronger matchups and way weaker matchups, like unwinnables on this slide. Like you probably won't be able to beat like Flawless Dolls and Control and all these other things get way worse compared to the ADP option. But the Luke Metal builds potentially has a strong ADP matchup, which is like a huge selling point, right? Um, and you can play a few different ways with this list. I've actually seen one of my teammates, he tried out a list that didn't play like any Jirachi or Absol, like no one prizes whatsoever, almost played it like a greens deck, but obviously you have Intrepid Sword instead. So you just make the opponent go through 8 prizes, and 4 of those 8 prizes have like 280 hit points, and then those other 3, like, oh, sorry, the 7 prize game or whatever. And the other guy has like 320 hit points that you have to get through. So you just send loads of meat the opponent's way and make them get through you. And you can play hammers as well in this list, which is low-key insane. There are some matchups where you just instantly win off of hammers. Like, again, the ADP will struggle against the hammers. You basically remove their like win condition against you. Hammer flips super insane against Sableye decks, super insane against Morpeko. They can do so much for you. Hammers are really, really good right now in the format, and that list just has more option to use hammers. So I think that is the biggest selling point. Just that energy removal, especially in the early game, combined with early like pressure in the active with Zacian is pretty cool. So it's like you just ignore the Luke Metal in this build a lot, and then there'll just be some matchups where that GX attack is nuts. You're basically like a pure Zacian list in that regard, but you just have more defensive tools available. So I can see the appeal, but I think there'll be matchups where you literally can't win without having ADP snuck in there as a 1-1 line with the energy.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So, with that being said, then where would you put it on a tier list?
I like it at 1.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a contender. Like there'll be all these different builds of Zacian, and this one is probably good against opposing Zacian lists, so that's fine. And having Luke Metal that has Psychic Resist plus the GX attack plus the Frying Pan is pretty good against Mewtwo. So, so it seems good against the 2 best decks in my eyes. So that's pretty decent.
That's fair. It just strikes me. It's going to be. It just strikes me as the kind of deck where there's going to be that one clever guy in the room at a court. He's playing it, and you're thinking, "Oh, if he is X, Y, and Z, he's had it." But he just somehow manages to dodge, bob, and weave them, and then he'll just go through. He'll go like 4-0, but like, oh, I OD now. Oh, shut up, you.
Yeah, it feels like one of those regionals decks where you go 2-0 and then you go straight to like 6-0 because you beat the gauntlet on those opening rounds, and then you just face the other people on your good record, and it'll just like storm through tournaments. And then there'll be other people who went like they lost their first round or they tied their first round, and then they went like drop after that. So yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, I don't know. I'm definitely sticking with the Pow version. No Pow. You know what I mean?
It's hard for me to look past how good ADP's GX attack is now. Yeah.
Especially when it gives up 2 prizes, guys, as well. This is a 2 prizer that can uptrade. You know what I mean? Like, let's not. You know what I mean? Jeez.
Yeah.
And it gives up 2 prizes. Right. 3.5. I just realised, well, we actually missed off a Zacian. So we'll quickly finish him off. Zacian Berserker. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to be its own deck, but I just saw it and I thought potentially it might be. Where you just play like a few Berserkers and just try and boost the damage up that way, stay at 2 5s, which seems fair to me. Is that will that be its own little half archetype Joe Berserker? Or?
Yeah, I think it could be its own little genre. It's just like a high tempo build of ADP. You don't get the benefit of taking extra prizes, but you get the benefit of tempo. You're like very consistently able to get a turn 2 attack off with Zacian if you want to build it this way round. And you can fairly consistently get it to 270 just because, especially if we get that Meowth promo either quickly or in the set itself, you can get those Berserkers turn 2, just, evolve, smack, give me my 3 prizes, like that's just really good tempo. I think all the Zacian lists are in and around tier 1 at least, because you can't really do it that wrong. You have Intrepid Sword for consistency, you have Metal Saucer for like longevity, so it's all good.
Yeah, I'm gonna put him in 1. It's just an insane card, isn't it? When I first saw it, I was like, woo, 230.
It's super bananas. Yeah.
And it can attach energy, and there's a
attach.
Oh.
I thought it was bananas before I read Metal Saucer, and I was like, oh, what have they done?
Just
This
that
is
thing, innit?
around
It's just like, oh, you can attach
forever
energy.
now.
Oh, and you keep. I thought it would be, oh, you attach energy. Oh, shuffle back in. Okay. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
but you keep the card too? Oh, my lord.
Yeah, it feels like that card's going to be around forever. It's going to last all of the rotations that it's legal in. It's going to be in all of those formats, I think.
Yeah, it could just be like, but he could be like Big Clown, where you just see him like 2 years later, and like he's still around, guys.
Yeah,
Zacian, what do we think?
yeah.
Could be like that. So I'm put that one tier one. So I don't think you can do that quite wrong, to be fair.